Yo, people, what's good? Welcome back to another episode of Durag Diaries. Yes, today we have a very big game, a London derby, no doubt about it. It's the dirty derby. This is one that's not very pleasant. It's one of those London derbies where you can really feel it's a proper one. I think West Ham is the little brother that they have a big punch sometimes, and that they always tend to they tend to get some points from us every year. Somehow, some way, they find a way to do us. But no, thank you for everyone joining. If you're not watching it live, you were watching it on a playback. Please, let's do some housekeeping. Um, Throw a like on the video, show some love on the channel, and subscribe. And also, we do have a guest. Of course, I couldn't do this show without a West Ham fan. And today we got Mikes. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you for inviting me on the channel. Yeah, it's always interesting to talk about this game. It's never a dull game. I don't think I've ever seen a dull time that this fixture's come about.
Never. There never is. With this game, it always some fireworks, and I always find I think every Spurs fan, the West Ham fan knows that there's always a big moment. There's always, if there's
Yeah.
not a red card, there's a dodgy decision, or there's something happening, a last minute
Mm,
goal. So this one's going to
yeah.
be a good one to get into. But before we get into any of the game, we always got to look at the teams and latest team news. Tell me the latest with West Ham. What's your team news looking like right now?
So pretty much everyone's fit apart from Nicholas Fulcrook. Nicholas Fulcrook was meant to be back a few weeks ago. For whatever reason, the club are keeping it quiet for how long that he's actually out for. The manager, again, trying to keep it quiet in a press conference. He's meant to be out for 2 weeks, meant to be back after the last international break, but he's still not back now for whatever reason. But that is the only injury we have at this current moment in time. Everyone else is fit, but it's just a case of obviously everyone has people traveling from different countries and different continents and stuff. And this manager likes to really keep it careful when it comes to players are coming back from like South America and stuff like that as well. Like he bench Paquetá in the first game when we came back, so I have a feeling that he's going to do that again. Which, depending on who he plays instead of him, it could go either way. We've got a lot of players traveling back, but so does everyone. So other than that, only one injury.
Yeah, and touching on Fulcrook, because I know when I was watching your video, you mentioned about the striker curse of the West Ham, and it's a very true one. Similar to Chelsea, you guys bring
Yeah.
in some really good players, but unfortunately, they just never seem to have that run of. It's just, I think I might be cutting out a little. But if I am back, what do you think of his performances so far this season? And do you think he's going to be a big miss in this game, or do you think that you can survive playing Antonio in the middle or potentially Bowen?
The thing is, there's nothing really to judge of Fulcrook because he's only played 60 minutes in the Premier League, and there was only 2 substitution appearances, or 3 substitution appearances in the first 3 games, and then after that, it was the international break, and then he got injured. There was the only time he started was the Carabao Cup game, and we didn't really get the ball into him. Like the reason why I talk about this like striker curse as well is because we don't actually build around the strikers. Like under David Moyes, we had Haller. He came into a team that had Sebastian Haller and didn't build the team around him because Antonio was his guy. Like without Antonio, the Moyes system doesn't really exist. Like the striker likes to run down the channels and get rough with the centre backs and stuff as well. But he approved the Scamacca transfer, but didn't build around him, and he kept blaming it on other strikers and stuff. And it's very complicated, this West Ham striker, because it's been going on for as long as I've been alive, really. And we've only seen like moments from other strikers, but with Antonio up front, I think this is the game where he comes to life. Really, he turns into a whole new player. Like this, and he's been very good for us over the years. But this is the game where he turns up, and this is the game I expect him to turn up. And I know Tottenham fans don't like him.
I hate Antonio. I generally got so much hate for him because he's one of those players that he always does it dirty. He always finds a way. I know so many times. I don't know. You correct me if I'm wrong, but Tottenham's one of the teams that he scored most of his goals against. I know he scored quite a few against us, and especially in the games, he gets big winners. I've been to quite a few games, even in the West Ham stands at times, and watched him. I've been doing undercover, FBI detectives, been in the West Ham stands, but we still lost. We still lost, so it didn't go well. Honestly, it didn't go well. Down at Upton Park, I remember that day. But no, hopefully, I'm going to be hoping that Antonio doesn't have a good game tomorrow, because
Mm,
he's definitely one of the players that I'm going to be watching out for. Because, like you said, whether he's in form or not, he's one of those players that tend to be very dangerous for us. And I think it's his erraticness, very similar to Richarlison. You tend to not know what they're going to do, and I don't even think they
yeah.
know what they're going to do themselves. But they just find a way. They just get through the defense, and then they just
Oh
toe
yeah.
poke it in, or they score a goal. And it's dirty, but that's the type of strikers you need. He's been consistent for you guys since he has come in, and he's consistently got goals and turn up in some of the bigger games. But just looking back into our team, I think one of the things
Mm.
that West Ham would probably did this well with a big boost for us massively. We got Human Song coming back. We got Human Song come back, a player that I feel like needed. Because I don't know if you've seen Spurs in the past couple games, but Timo, Turbo Werner, he's an athlete. I always say he's an athlete. He's not a footballer.
Mm.
He
Yeah.
needs to go do some Olympic sprint racing, maybe the 200
Facts.
meters. I think he can go compete over there. But when it comes to
Yeah.
playing football on the pitch, it's absolute heartache. He's just it's one of those guys. I don't even like to speak about him too much, because you know what to expect of him nowadays. If you don't expect much from him, you can't really get angry about it. And he's one of those players that every game missing chance, missing opportunity. So Sonny coming back is a big one for us. I know he always
Yeah.
loves a goal in this game against West Ham, but
Yeah.
let's speak about it, because so far your season hasn't really been one to talk about. It's been one that I know you said you've been really disappointed in, because you hold your team to a certain standard, which rightly so.
Mm.
Under David Moyes, you finished above us a couple times. You won the
Mm.
Europa Conference League, and you guys done some stuff to show that you can push on to that potentially not Champions League, but just before Champions League level. You were there. You were in and around with Tottenham, Chelsea, Man United, and to be honest, with your summer window. And I feel like with the sporting director you've got in with Tim Staten, you've made some really good moves. You've shown that you want to be ambitious, but it's just not working out on the pitch so far. Well, why do you think that is?
Do you know what it is? Like it needed. There was a change that was needed anyway with the whole managerial aspect. Just because even with the season when we won the Conference League, we were falling off as a whole team in general. So it was kind of needed in that sense. And when Lopetegui came in, I wasn't sure in the first place because I didn't know if this was the owner just taking a cheap option or whether it's the director of football. But when it was said by the inside sources that it was the director of football, I was like, okay, I can get behind this because Tim Stein trusts that Leverkusen, I can trust him at West Ham. He was working under Xabi Alonso for like his first season, so I trust him with all of that. And the thing is, I never get too excited about this club, even though I'm really happy with what was going on. Like I was very happy with the transfer window because we pretty much addressed like most positions that we needed. We needed the amount of players that we actually got, and we pretty much addressed every position apart from maybe left back. But other than that, it was like okay, you've got this team now. The manager was talking about wanting two players in each position. He's got that. And the problem is he likes us to tinker too much with his style. So then we don't know what his style actually is.
Yep.
So we thought we were going to get front-footed, style of play, try and play through the lines a bit and be a bit brave. Well, when we've seen that in glimpses this season, is when we've played our best. In fact, when we lost against Man City, it was one of our best performances because we tried to play through them, and we actually created chances. We just didn't finish them against Ipswich. After the first 20 minutes, we actually kicked on and we beat them in the end. But this was also against an Ipswich side that was trying to play out from the back. Like it's still Ipswich at the end of the day. You beat them 4-1, cool. But can you do that against sides that actually of any notoriety? Like against Brentford, it didn't look like Brentford, Fulham away and stuff like that. We haven't lost an away game yet, but two of those have been draws to Brentford and Fulham. Like we didn't deserve to
Yeah.
even get a draw in that Fulham game. Like we got very lucky at the end, and it had been a Brentford game. I didn't even know what we were trying to do off the ball, let alone on the ball. Like the manager likes to set the team high up the pitch, but only waits to press in the midfield, which just allows any other team to work out by just putting an extra man in midfield, and then we get
Where do
played
you
through.
think the biggest weakness has been for your team? Because when I went to the West Ham game again. I was again doing some FBI detective business. Do you know what it is? West Ham's local, so I tend to be
Yeah.
able to get tickets very easy. So I was at the Chelsea versus West Ham game, and I was watching.
Mm. You've cut out.
Sorry, did I cut out?
Yeah, you're back now. You're back now. You're back now.
Oh wow, bloody hell! I thought it was all working fine. I completely can't.
Yeah.
So now I was saying so in the game against Chelsea, one of the things I noticed, the biggest problem for
Mm,
me, and your biggest weakness was the defense. The amount of gaps that there was,
mm,
that they were easy to pay through. Nicholas Jackson and Jadon Sancho combining well, just little 1-2s, and they were finding pretty much on the right hand side and the left hand side. It felt like your fullbacks were playing way too high up, and there wasn't really no
mm,
cohesion and chemistry. And like you said, the tactics and the system very similar to how Man United are at the moment. You know that there's
mm.
no
Yeah.
system in place that's been consistent, so the players are not on the same page at times. So
Yeah.
different games, different tactics, different setups. Do you think that this game, the defense, is where you guys are going to have your biggest problems? You're going to have to lean on the attack to sort of drag you through, or how do you think that's going to play out?
Um, with the whole defense thing, especially in a Chelsea game, I think the problem it was definitely the structure because we tried to go man to man. We tried to go man to man with a Chelsea team that have all the mobile players on the pitch, and we have the most immobile players trying to mark them, like setting Alvarez on Jackson and setting Rodriguez on Palmer. The problem is like Wan-Bissaka was trying to mark Kukurea, that dude was so high up, as you were saying, about the fullbacks and stuff. Like, to be honest, before the first international break, the structure of the defence, we were actually better than last season by sitting high up and sitting together. The problem is, because this manager is still slightly pragmatic, he likes to change it up off the ball every game. So that's why we haven't looked so cohesive as well. And also, we've been playing Mavropanos instead of Tadibo up until the Brentford game, when Tadibo is a significant upgrade on Mavropanos. And I
Yeah,
trust the back four of Wan-Bissaka, Tadibo, Kilman, and Emerson, if they're structured right. It's just whether this manager is actually going to get it right when approaching the game. Because I know you guys have got good runners in behind and stuff. And listen, with Son coming back, obviously any West Ham fan will tell you that they're going to be afraid of human Son because we just get sick of it every game, every time. Like it's like the Antonio thing for you guys. Like obviously his son, don't get me wrong, like he's a great player, but he scores all the time in this fixture. But with Wan-Bissaka this season, I've actually been really impressed with his performances. So I trust him to at least stay in the battle against Son, of course. And Tadibo and Kilman have played well together since they've come in the past two games. But it's just whether this manager's actually going to get it right structurally. I think the main problem as well has been like the way playing players out of position, a bit like my problem with the last manager of last season. Like Mohamed Kudus isn't a left winger; he's good in the middle or good on the right. Like I've said to people, Bowen isn't a striker, even though he did well. But like at times last season, most of his goals were still coming off the right, even when he was playing up front. I think he doesn't know the balance with finding Paquetá, Kudus, and Bowen in the same team. And I think he has. I think since he's come into the Premier League at Wolves and West Ham, he's feel like every time he goes away from home, he has to be even more pragmatic. And the problem is, if you keep switching it up every game, you don't have an identity anymore on and off the ball, which he's kind of messed up himself.
yeah, yeah. And that's one thing that I think has probably been your biggest problem this season. But with West Ham, I do feel like there is hope and there's room to grow because it's good that you're getting the teething problems out of the way now, and it's natural. I
Yeah.
feel like you see this with a lot of managers when they come in, they either have a big boost like Spurs did, where you just have a run of games where you win and teams haven't
Mm,
figured you out yet, or you don't really figure things out and then later on in the season you pick it up. So sometimes it's best to get out of the way now. And to be honest, this isn't a game that I really wanted to see. I didn't, especially off the back of how we performed against Brighton, and we know it's an international break. I didn't want
mm,
West Ham right now because,
mm,
like we said, West Ham somehow, some way, find a way to grind out results. Look at this game last season, and that's a
mm.
fixture that I remember. It's the one game that I look back next season and say, how did we lose that game? It was, I remember the goal. Didn't Bowen score that goal where it hit off the defender, it hit the post, and then he tapped it in. You guys had like 2 or 3 chances that game, just finished them on the
Mm,
back leg. And I think I look back at that game and say that's very typical Spurs. And that's one
mm,
thing I'm worried about happening again this weekend because I look at your attack. Like you said, Kudus, if he plays him in the right positions, and I think if you set up with Antonio, Kudus, and Bowen, or potentially Bowen's Somerville and Kudus together in a free, it gives you guys that dynamic pace up front where you're going to cause problem for us. Because the one thing that Spurs don't like is 1v1 players. Whenever we have
Mm.
them against Porro, Adogi, Romero is pretty good at it. And Van de Ven, if you're trying to play them in the transition. But once you guys get those 1v1s and you start to take advantage of that, you're going to cause us problems. You're going to create attacks. Those players are, they're problematic. So with that, what are you thinking for this game? How is your head going into it? Are you scared of Spurs, or what do you think of Spurs so far this season? Are you worried about this one?
The joy is, I predicted at the start of the season, I said Spurs would finish in the same position, just because that I feel like when I looked at Tottenham's transfer window, just even overall last season, I was like, if they address their attack like properly, get starters in a transfer window, like I think Solanke's a good signing. Odebear's another young player, like I don't expect too much from him straight away. I think you guys needed a bit more competition of a higher level in attack. Um, I think Postecoglou's done well by playing Kulusevski permanently in the midfield. That's made Spurs a bit better in that sense. But I think overall, when it comes to Tottenham, I'm always going to be afraid of Tottenham coming into this game specifically, because I don't really look forward to this game in general. Even though we do get the odd result now and then, our record at your stadium hasn't actually been that good as of late. But just in general, this game is always it could go anywhere. But I'm more cautious in general in any types of games. Like, I'm more pessimistic when it comes to West Ham just in general. I think this when I look at this game, I just think neither team are as good as they should be. So I feel like we could cancel each other out quite a bit. Like, there's talent on the pitch. It's just whether they show up is the real thing. Like, whether our attack is going to get isolated again, or whether Madison has one of them days where he's just running the midfield, and Son has one of them games where he just scores against us again. He just turns up. Solanke's obviously a very good player. We need to be afraid of him. Like,
Yeah.
Brennan Johnson's on good form as well, even on international duty and in club form. Like, so like like we've got like, put it this way, it's going to be very open. This game's going to be open, and it's going to be entertaining for all the neutrals. I didn't want Tottenham on the first game coming from the international break, because West Ham on the first game of the international break, I can't remember the last time we won.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time we won a game on the first game of the international break. We just don't seem to turn up. I don't know what it is, because there isn't any excuses. Everyone has the same international break. Everyone has players traveling. So I don't know why we don't turn up on the first games. But yeah, this isn't a particular fixture I wanted straight away either. So that's why I think we'll just cancel each other out going into this game.
Yeah, I can't even lie. This is one of those games that, as much as I'm predicting Spurs to win, and I've got us beating you guys, and I feel like we have a good enough team to go out there and do the job, it does smell like a draw. It does smell like one of those games, like you say, where we're gonna cancel each other out. It's an early kickoff as well, 12:30, the first game of the weekend. The players are gonna be tired. They're gonna be up early, barely any rest after the international break. And I don't know if they're gonna be at the races. I feel like it's gonna be a bit of a scrappy one. Both teams not really looking too sharp. And yeah, it might be one of those ones where it's very fine margins. It could be one of the smallest things what lead one of us to win, maybe a set piece. And I think that's one place you guys could definitely catch us out. Set pieces are a huge problem for Tottenham. Although we've improved on it a bit this season, and Vicario's management of the box has been better, I still think that we are a bit weak in the air. The likes of Romero and Van de Ven aren't aerially dominant, so you guys could take advantage of that. I know your team has got a lot smaller over the season. When I'm really looking at West Ham, like the whole front line, especially when you play Paqueta and you've got not Edison. What's his name in the middle? Alvarez.
Alvarez.
Yeah, Edson Alvarez. When he's in the middle, you don't really have that physically imposing team as such. As to when there was Souček in there, but I know he's been coming in and out of the team. It's very, like you said, it's weird with Lopetegui. And I saw, so in your video, there was one thing that you had underneath your name, surviving Lopetegui. I always get his name wrong, so ignore me if I'm murdering it. So what do you think about it? Are you on the stance that you're ready for him? You're ready to get over this and bring in a new manager, or you still you have belief that he can improve the team?
I think, but the thing is, I remember when, like, for context, when the game against Man City, we all had hope. Like when it came to the way we approached the game, like we lost 3-1 to Man City last season, and it looked very different from the 3-1 this season, where we actually played well. It just came to the players not finishing chances. The manager got a lineup right and stuff like that. And I thought we were going to capitalize on that after the international break, coming up against Fulham away. He changes the whole style of play for that specific game, playing Suchek in a 10 next to Antonio, and we just went long every game. It looked like the old West Ham are just long, they're just sending it long, losing the ball and getting turned over all the time, really. And that's my problem, is the inconsistency. And then he goes into against Chelsea and tries to like man mark every player. And my problem was, I said in a full match reaction, like if we lose against Chelsea, then I'm out, because we're not going to play the same way. I didn't see what we saw against Man City, against Fulham, and against Chelsea, where we actually looked like we could attack. For some reason, like I know it's new and stuff like that, but I'm looking at your manager, I'm looking at Unai Emery, I'm looking at Maresca. When they all come in, you know exactly what they're going to do as soon as they come in, because they're good enough coaches to instill a style of play very quickly. But you don't see that with this manager, because we don't know what this manager is when it comes to his identity. That's why if I can't see what you're trying to do, and I don't think you're going to get the best out of the players, and this is coming from me who didn't have actually much expectation going towards this season, then I can't really get behind it. But the thing is, the manager doesn't, like, all he has to do is just let the players play with a bit of freedom. That's how you get the best out of the players. Then I can be on board with it. But he's not going to be consistent with that, because I've seen how he approaches games. He approaches every game differently, and you're never going to get a team to gel with the amount of new players that you've had by playing that way.
Yeah. You never are, especially when you're a new manager coming in. I feel like that's one thing that Ange has done really well. Unai Emery, but like you said, Enzo Maresca, 3 managers that have come into their teams, not really had too much time, but from the time that they have had, it's very clear to see that they've imposed a system, they've imposed a structure that they're going to maintain. And you can see success eventually building from that, because that's the arrogance that you need to say, we're going to play one way and we're going to benefit from this, and eventually it's going to work out for us. That's one thing that Ange has been criticized for recently. And I suppose, what's your thoughts on that? Because I've been of the Tottenham fan base that's been quite happy with Ange. I've been, although skeptical, and I think you can criticize managers for, some of their shortcomings. I do feel like he could be a bit more tactically flexible in games. I think he needs to be able to make substitutions a bit quicker. And sometimes he needs to he needs to loosen up a bit and drop the line. There's a few things like that, just small things and tweaks that we've seen sometimes, but I think maybe more often. But as a West Ham fan, from looking on the outside, how do you feel about Ange and the job that he's doing at Spurs so far?
I'm quite on the fence when it comes to your manager. The reason why I see the way he plays is like, if it's one of them ones, it can either go from 0 to 100, like depending on how the game goes, where you either get absolutely smashed or you can smash another team by approaching the game that way. My thing is, he just needs to tweak it a little bit more in games. I just think his in-game management needs to improve. I think his team selections, when I look at his team selections, they can be sometimes a bit questionable. I can understand either side of the argument if a Spurs fan was like, okay, I can really get behind this if we just actually back him properly and stuff like that. But I also know that he's one to say that I approve every signing. So if you approve every signing, okay, that's a bit of a problem then, because I still feel like Spurs can improve a lot, especially in the attacking areas. If you're an attacking manager and you're going out with them attackers, like you said, Timo Werner, we've seen what Timo Werner's like even before Tottenham. Like, like Brennan Johnson, like he's on a good patch right now, but I don't know whether he can do that on a consistent basis. I think he's a good on a transition type of player. Solanke's a good signing. I think that it was that level of signing that needed to be had throughout the whole attack. I don't know if Son can, even though he's a great player, can he do that touchline winger sort of stuff at his age right now? Is it maybe demanding a bit too much? Like sometimes where teams are sitting deeper, you're going to need someone different. And then it all relies on the creativity coming from your fullbacks and maybe Maddison coming in. Like, I think he has good ideas, but I think he just needs to tweak it a little bit. And if he actually does approve new signings, he really needs to look at his attack properly and think, does he really have the depth? Not even just like with the Thursday, Sunday football, but even one game a week. Does he have the squad for it to get top four and maybe to push on to win a trophy, because the guy likes to present himself as a winner, but you kind of need to prove that in the cups as well. Go strong in the cups as well, because I know the whole people are angry about the commentary situation as well.
No, definitely. I have to agree wholeheartedly with that. Because the one thing for me is like he does talk a good game, but I need to go out there and
Mm,
prove it. You need to show
yeah.
me in the cups that you can go out there and win. David Moyes won and won in Europa Conference League, and
Mm,
because you guys did, weren't necessarily the best team in there, but you showed that you could turn up on your day and give big performances. That's all that you need
mm,
to be to win a cup. So Ange needs to show this, that again, you need tactical flexibility, that you need to be able to adapt to in the game, to be able to make big changes, sometimes maneuver a player into different positions to be able to get a big result. That's what you saw when we
mm,
first saw Bowen playing in the middle and sort of getting tested out in that striker role, was in that cup run. So it's
mm,
one of those things where you can bring the best out of your players, and hopefully with Ange, we're gonna see that. I'm hopeful that we can get a big trophy this season, hopefully the Europa League, but I'm not going to
mm.
ride on it and say that it's 100% going to happen, because it's Spurs at the end of the day. I
Yeah.
know my club. And I'd love to sit here and put on the fake smile and tell you, yeah, we're gonna win something, most definitely, yeah, we're gonna do it. But they've let me down far too many times, so I've got to be a bit more realistic here and hold my hopes out and say, prove it to me, show me that we can do it, prove me wrong. Um,
Mm.
but let's get into the final predictions. Get into saying what do you need to see from your team to get a win? Because this is going to be the dirty derby. As I said, it's not going to
Mm.
be nice. But what do you need to see from West Ham? And what team, what lineup would you like to see Lopetegui put out in order to get a big result for you this weekend?
I need to see it's like our attack not be isolated. I need to see the players used in their right positions, and not even just in the right positions, but in the right areas of the pitch. Like I've been angry quite a lot with Bowen being used on the touchline, and whoever's playing right back, whether it's Wan-Bissaka and Sufel, making underlapping runs and stuff. I need Bowen in the pockets, just firing shots off, because we saw against Ipswich, like players don't want to mark Jared Bowen. Players don't want to come up against Jared Bowen when he's cutting in on his left foot. You don't want to see him shoot with his left foot. It's simple as that. He's one of the most dangerous in that position, like maybe barring Salah and Saka. And when it comes to the team in general, like we've got players like Alvarez and Rodriguez, very hot-headed South American, North American players, where they can lose their head sometimes. In a big game like this, don't lose your head. If you go down to 10 men, it's going to get sticky. You're going to have to adapt real quick. Like you can't be going in rush, and they're prone to yellow cards and stuff. I know players like Antonio are going to turn up. He knows what this fixture's about and stuff like that. And I know players that are local are going to turn up as well. But what I need to see, I just need to see them play the game like play the game and not the occasion, really. And with the lineup, I'd like, I would understand if you went with the same lineup as Ipswich, but if for me, I would probably bench someone like if you're going to bench someone like a Paquetá, I'd rather start then Kudus in the middle and then Somerville on the left, just so he can just run out players and stuff like that. Somerville and Bowen both cutting in on a strong feet, and Antonio up front. The same back four: Wan-Bissaka, Kilman, Tadibo, Emerson, Areola in goal. I'm not a fan of Souček, but he warranted on his Ipswich performance. He should probably start with Alvarez behind Bowen, Kudus, Somerville, and Antonio.
Yeah, I mean that's a dangerous team. I'd probably say
Mm,
that's the one that I'm fearful of. Souček, he's one of those players, like you said, he doesn't always give you a great performance all round, but he can pop up
mm,
with a goal, and he pops up with some important ones, to say the
yeah.
least. But for Spurs, I think to counteract that, I'm probably going to need to see some changes myself, because in
Mm,
that last game, I think the one thing that we showed is some complacency. Some of our players, just especially at the back, got far too lazy. Moments where Romero's just ball watching, and it's lapses in concentration that's killed us. And with a front line
mm,
like that, I think we might potentially need to see a change at the back. I'd like
mm,
to see, well, I don't know if if we're gonna see it, but I'd like to see some minutes from Jed Spence. I'd like to see what
mm,
he can bring to us, because Pedro Porro, although he gives us a lot going forward, on the defensive side of things, he has been a problem. So I'd like to
mm.
see him get some minutes on the weekend. But apart from that, I think if Basuma comes into the lineup, we put Sonny in there, it's going to be dangerous, man. I feel like the one thing that West Ham will, where you guys are going to struggle, is on the ball. If you guys do get into that low shape where you start to get into a low block, and you're not trying to play through the lines, you're not trying to play out, because the players you have they're good on the ball players, they're very technical, so you should be trying to play out. But if you start to try to get into that low block positions, I think that's where we're going to beat you. I think that's where we're going to take advantage, because like I said, the chemistry with the back line is just not there, and you find far too many holes against West Ham at the moment. I feel like because it's still, like you said, the system's new and they're still getting used to it, it's more than it's normal, it's teething problems, but it's one of those ones I'm hoping Spurs can take advantage of. But score predictions. What's your score prediction, Mike? What are you going for? I know it's always a hard one, but you can tell what you're hoping and then what you think is going to happen.
Oh well, what I'm hoping is at least a win. I'll take any win. I'll take a scrappy 1-0, 1-0 to the Cockney boys. I'll take a 2-0. I don't care what I don't care what it is. But what I actually think it could go either way when it comes to this game. Where I think either it could be one of them days where West Ham back off the international break is still asleep and we get battered, which will be embarrassing. But I think it'll be a 1-1 just because I think both teams will cancel out each other. I don't think either team will be at their best. But I think it'll probably be a defensive mistake from either team, and both teams will capitalize on that one chance, and then it'll be scrappy from the rest of the game, really.
Yeah, I think, it's a hard one. I predicted a 2-0. I think we're going to keep a clean sheet, but that's a lot of hope. I'm not going to lie. That's what I'm hoping is going to happen. We're going to keep a clean sheet because it's very rare for Spurs. But like I said, it does smell like a draw. I've got a really bad feeling that somehow, some way, maybe Spurs are 1-0 up most of the game, and then in the 80th minute, West Ham get a goal, 1-1, and then we're just there battling out, trying to get a winner, and in typical Spurs fashion, we just find a way not to. But yeah, I do think we can win though. I am definitely confident of a win, but the early kickoffs just throw me off. I never really fancy an early kickoff, especially after an international break.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, no, most definitely. So yeah, man, that's been it, man. That's been the show. That's been a Tottenham London derby preview. We've kept it nice, short and sweet because the game's soon. We're not really gonna go too much into it because we just need to see how the boys play out. But it's been a good one, Mike. Thank you for joining me on my channel, Durag Diaries. But where can they find you? I'll put your link to the channel in the description, so please make sure you go down there, show Mike some love. But you tell them, what have you got coming up, and where can people find you, man?
Yeah, at GVO Mikes on all platforms, mainly YouTube, but also Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok as well. I'll have my match reaction at 10 p.m. To the game, and I'll pretty much be live every day. There's a lot of European games coming on, so I'll be doing watch-alongs and stuff, and every match preview and every match reaction, so every West Ham game will be live.
Lit. That's sick, man. Make sure you guys are tuning into Mike's and what he's doing. We'll definitely try and link up for a match reaction sometime to review this game. That'll be good to go through. And yeah, man, thank you for coming on, people. Thank you for watching. Again, before you head out, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Drop a like on the video and let us know your thoughts. What's your predictions? What is the score going to be this weekend? Before we head out, I know that we had a few predictions in here. We had the right show. West Ham getting hammered this time. Son, BJ22 and Kulu getting goals. 3-1 Spurs. Ironic Chelsea with the dreads. Spurs are going to smash West Ham. I be real. Big up from Lil Tims. And West Ham need Declan Rice and Spurs need Harry Kane. I think we're over those ones, Chelsea. Ironic. I think we're over those ones. But thank you guys for joining. It's been a pleasure. It's been a good show. And yeah, man, we're heading out.